This video is a response to a request by a few students about my implementation of WordPress and more specifically what plugins am I using and how do I set things up. I'm going to be focusing primarily on the plugins, and actually I was hoping to get this video out a little bit sooner, but a power outage for a day and a half put me behind. That's a long story. I won't go into that. But I also spent a bit of time looking at my plugins, and I ended up deleting a bunch. I had about almost 30 of them, and now I'm down to 21, and I probably could get rid of another five or six more. And the reason I'm pointing this out at the very, very beginning is that in an earlier meeting, I talked about the fact that one of the things that I'm looking to do is use the native functionality within WordPress to be able to do the things I want to do. So WordPress has a Jetpack functionality that offers an enormous amount of power and capability within the Jetpack. There's a lot of things that you can turn on, everything from site statistics to security to backup performance. There's a lot of different things that you can actually do with the Jetpack. There's a lot of functionality that you can turn on, and so it's all controlled through this Jetpack dashboard, right? So Jetpack offers a lot of functionality that had been offered by plugins, right? So there's a lot of things that can be done through the Jetpack that we used to do with plugins. And so when I look at the plugins that I have now, I'm also going to point to one of the issues that you run into with using a particular plugin. And I want to point this at the very top. Google, actually, WordPress has built in Google Form functionality in a unique way. And so it eliminates the need of a Google Form. Now, I had been using the Google Forms plugin right here in the past, and I probably have a few forms somewhere in my site where I'm in a position where I'm a little uncomfortable to turn it off. Right, moving forward, I'm going to use a Google Form functionality built into WordPress, but some of the old stuff that I've done, I can't remember everywhere I put a Google Form, and so I'd have to search through my entire site. We're talking over 1,000, between the blog posts and the pages, we're talking, 16, 1700 pages, 1700 pages, a lot of stuff. There's a lot of content here. So the point I want to make is whenever you can use the built-in functionality within WordPress, use the Jetpack, use all the tools, and there's a lot of tools that come built into WordPress. So keep that in mind, okay? A lot of tools, a lot of functionality, a lot of things you can do, okay? Contact form, like there's a lot of really cool things that you can actually do just with a native program. Keep that in mind. So having said that, I did that to explain an issue with the Google form. I also have an issue with YouTube. I'm constantly embedding YouTube, and right now I'm caught in another situation where Jetpack has YouTube shortcodes embedded into it, but I do have a YouTube shortcode. I do have a YouTube embed plugin. And again, because my site has existed for over 10 years, it's hard for me to go back and to change that. And so again, when you start using plugins, and potentially plugins can go away, they can break, you've got to be really, really careful. So be very, very judicious in selecting your plugin. So on to the note, what plugins do I use? What is the bare minimum? So with a brand new WordPress setup, right? When I help my boys set up their websites, or my son, 7 months ago built a brand new WordPress site for his business. What did we do? What I encouraged him to implement? Well, I got him to implement Akismet anti-spam tool. So if you're going to implement comments and a variety of other things, this is a wonderful tool. You need it. It just deals with spam. Got to have it. It's free. It's a must-have. I'm implementing podcasting, and so Blueberry allows me to implement WordPress and podcasting and a variety of other things right within my site. I'm experimenting with it. I haven't figured it out, but it's a recent thing that I'm doing. The more recent versions of WordPress have implemented an editor that or a way that you build pages and posts with an editor that I'm not fond of, and so I wanted to go back to much more of a classic basic HTML editor view or a text editor view. And so I had to run this tool called the Classic Editor that allowed me to disable the new editor or re-enable the classic editor functionality, and that allowed me to use my favorite editing tool, which is TinyMCE. Right, and there's some other editing tools. So that's something that I do, right? Because the current version of WordPress editing, I'm not fond of it. I've been using this for a long time, many years, and I got used to using an older format. And I don't think the newer format, the newer editor works that well. There's some advantages to being able to drop into the HTML code and do a few other things that I think is much more convenient for TinyMCE. Also, I'm showing you that I do have a background in command line and I'm working with text editors, and so this is sort of a preference of mine. So that's one of the things with WordPress, is that you have the flexibility to configure things the way that you want. So keep that in mind. So clean and simple contact form. Here's something else. I've been playing around with a variety of contact forms, right? So I do have a contact form on my website, and you don't want robots to be spamming you, so I added a CAPTCHA. That's where you have an image, you have to type that in just to confirm that you are a real person doing that, right? I also had been playing around with another contact form that I am experimenting with right now, and I'm probably going to be deactivating this one. Disable REST. This is a tool that is something that I'm probably going to be disabling relatively soon. Yeah, I'm going to be disabling that. I just have to turn off a couple of things. There was an issue about 4 or 5 years ago where you needed a certain functionality with a certain way that the site was going to be used, and it's gone away, and I'm going to be pulling that out. So again, here's an evidence that you got to be really careful what you put into your site in terms of plugins, because once a plugin is unnecessary, but you did implement it in a key area of your site, you might have to figure out where, make those changes, and then go back. So always be careful, right? So FeedBurner, this again, I've been doing this for a long time, and the FeedBurner allows you to do subscription functionality. I had used this many years ago. I haven't removed it from every aspect of my site, so I have to sort of leave it there because there's certain posts on my site where I did use that functionality. Similar with the Google Forms that I mentioned. Google Sitemaps, again, I've got a sitemap view. I don't play around with sitemapping that much anymore, but what this does is this also allows search engines to be able to find your information much more easily. So it's something that I still will probably use, but there's some other functionality that has come into WordPress that enables that. Pull quotes. Here's another legacy. This is an old plugin that I used years ago, and I used it for a couple of years, and to have quotes formatted in a certain way. And right now, with the TinyMCE editor and block quotes, I'm able to actually show quotes in a different way. Anyways, long story short, legacy issue. I've got it used in some pages from the past, so I have to keep it running. Okay. If I was moving forward, I wouldn't be using it today. Okay. So this is a big qualification. You got to be really careful about putting plugins in, because guess what? Things change, times change, functionality changes within WordPress. Stuff can go away. Now, this is one thing I do use: Protect the Children, and I have several pages on my site where I have a starting page that is password protected, and then all the sub pages need to be password protected. Well, guess what? This Protect the Children allows me to protect the starting page and then the child sub pages. So yeah, something I need to use. I've got a couple of tools that I use in terms of just basic security. Shield is a free tool that works quite well. I also have another tool called WordFence Security. I have the free versions. You run a couple of them, they do some checking, and so it just helps to maintain the fact that it checks on if your plugins are old or outdated, because a lot of security holes in WordPress come about because of plugins. So keep that in mind. Here's a key tool, my TinyMCE Advanced Editor. it's a powerful tool that I've been using for years. It's a basic text editor. It's used in a variety of different formats. It's very similar to another text editor I use on my Mac, and it's there. Um, Updraft, backup, restore. If you need to move your site around, this is a tool that you can actually, make an archive of your site, save your database, and a variety of other things. And over the years, I make the occasional backups. I have a backup functionality within my hosting site, so but this is one extra little tool that I have used in the past. I don't use it much right now. This is a tool too, Velvet Blues, that allows me to update old URLs on a site, and I can activate and change a URL across my entire site. And so if you have to move your domain and change some things, it's a very useful editing tool, but it's used for very specific things, right? Video sidebar, I like to have a video on the side, and it allows me to drop that in there, and I update that every once in a while. And then for just database management and backup, I've got a couple of database management tools where I make a backup of my database every once in a while. And then here was that YouTube embed plugin, which is replaced by the functionality built into WordPress. So hopefully I pointed out some key plugins that I'm using, but I've also hopefully explained to you that almost all this functionality now comes built into WordPress. Right. So, I pointed to some tools that I do use, like the text editor. But yeah, WordPress is you want to really take advantage of WordPress, Jetpack, and so I'd encourage you to go down that path. So hopefully this points to the plugins that I am currently using, and as you've noticed, more than half are because I used to use them years ago, and then because they're still in my site somewhere, they're kind of a legacy issue. But as I move forward, I'm looking to remove more and more plugins. And I had mentioned I had 30 some plugins earlier on this week, and as I was going through this the last couple of days and cleaning things up, I'm down to 21. I could probably remove another 5 or 6, but it's going to take me a bit of work, and I'm just running out of time. So hopefully this has helped. This is for you WordPress users that are out there, but also if you're using other tools, try to use the native functionality and maximize the functionality. There's a lot of power in the tools that are available. So again, hope this helps. And for you WordPress users out there, this is my WordPress experience.